Thank you. Yes, who did that? Yes, yes, yes. I'll take some more of that any day, any day. Thank you again so much for coming out tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I read a book last year now about, thank you. I read a book called How Music Works by David Byrne. And I just thought it was incredible, so I thought let's get together and do an evening like this. You enjoying it so far? Yeah. Good stuff. Well, 3 stories. Let's see if you resonate with any of these. I lived with a guy called Phil when I was younger. Phil was my mate, like the guys before us today. He was a talented musician, really, really good guy. One day, Phil goes out for a walk, and he comes back in tears. I said, "What's wrong, Phil? What's going on?" And he goes, "John, I was listening to Coldplay, and then it started to snow." That was it. That was all it took. Coldplay and snow equals serious emotion. Watch out. Second story. I was reading this other book. I read another book. Hey! And this second book there was a bit in it that was all about the author's divorce. He was going through a divorce. And he was in a coffee shop, and in the coffee shop, he was sort of just mulling things over, as you do in the coffee shop, and behind him was this background music. It was a classical piece. It came on, and the author writes down in the book, he said, "The piece spoke to me about the nature of mercy." The piece spoke to me about the nature of mercy. He said, "There is enough room in this situation for you." Have you ever had a piece of music that spoke to you without words? Third story. I worked with someone. She came into the office the other day, and she had an MP3. It was a track, and it was an R&B track. And her son, who's 18, had rapped over the second and the third verses of this thing. And as the second verse came on, she too started to cry as her boy began to rap. And I think half of it was about the fact that he was expressing, she was feeling pride about her son. She was just chuffed at what he was doing. But I think also another part of it, was that he could tell something to music that he couldn't tell to his own mother. Weird, isn't it, what music does to us? I heard what Tom said, just before he was playing some of his songs. I've been on a weird and wacky journey with music myself. Just hands up if you've been moved by the music that you listen to. Presumably that's why you're here. Just put your hands up. Music is such a weird thing, isn't it? The things that it does to you, the deja vu, the questions that it raises. I am just a tourist. I'm surrounded by musicians this evening. It's actually quite intimidating. But what I wanted to do with this evening was just try and put my finger on a few things, a few ways in which music moves us, so that we can come away from this evening not just feeling like we're better listeners to music, but feeling like we're better participants of what is happening all around us. Feel free, by the way, at any stage to get yourself a drink or go to the loo or do whatever you need to do. Now, in 1952, a man called John Cage sat down at a piano. He was in a concert hall and he was just about to play everybody his new piece. His new piece was called 4 minutes 33 seconds. And he got himself ready, he sat down, he opened up his sheet music like this, and then he began to play. And for 4 minutes, 33 seconds, there was silence. Because John Cage's thing was about everything that is needed to make the music was already here in the room before I got here. It's the creaking of bottles, the opening of doors, the nervous glances even that make a little noise of their own, the shuffling of seats, the noise of the dull traffic outside. He said everything was already musical, that the world around him was music, and he didn't need to sample it and turn it into music. He said that instead, by itself, it is generous and fertile, that we are already immersed in it. Think about the birds, for instance. the forest or the rainforest or the wood or wherever they are, there's some birds, yeah, that have evolved and they've got this kind of brief and constant pitch that's needed to cut all the way through dense foliage. And there are other birds who have evolved and they've got this like high-pitched sound so that they can travel all the way across water, so the noise can travel. And soundscape experts say that not only birds do this, but mammals and fish, all animals do this as well. They take up these high, medium and low frequency bands so that they call to each other, and their calls have kind of been, they fit their environment, they fit the context that they're in. But what's so amazing is not just that they fit the context that they're in, but no one bird and no one mammal sings or shouts over any of the others. There is no clashing, there is no cutting over each other. The whole thing works as a symphony. Everybody has a home. There's this guy called Matthew Whitaker. He's a young boy. He was born prematurely and it left him blind. And he lives in New York, and he's incredibly musical, and every Saturday he makes the journey from New Jersey over to New York City, where he does his music lessons. And his dad's in this interview, and his dad's talking about his boy, and he says, my son hears everything as music. The copy machine is like an A, and like the fax machine is a B flat. He hums along with the city. And when Matthew himself is interviewed, he's asked, what's New York City like for you? Describe New York City. And he points his hands out in front of him like this, and he spins around a full 360 degrees, and he says that everything in New York City is a circle of sound. He says it's dark, it's musical. He said everyone has a smile on their face. It's so beautiful. Even when you look in the ancient poetry of the Bible, what is it that begins the world? It is a sound. It is a voice that starts everything off. God says, let there be light, and the light separates itself off from darkness. And whether you take that as a sonic vibration, or you take it as a big bang, or whether you take it as a literal voice itself, the extraordinary thing is that the poet, he doesn't choose a dance or a text, he chooses a sound. And what I think is that the sound that created the world has been teaching us how to create ever since. Everything, I think, is connected to everything else. So when you begin to listen to music, like tonight even, you ask yourself inside all these kind of questions about who you are and what life's about and what's going on. When my wife and I were in Bali a few years back, and when you go to Bali, you can find yourself in a temple. And if you happen to be in a Balinese temple in the afternoon and some flowers get dropped off there, you know something's going to go down. Later on in the evening, after they're like a symbol, later on in the evening, these people start appearing, like with masks and costumes and makeup. All starts happening. Out of the fabric of this town emerges a kind of gamelan Hindu dance ritual production thing. It just sort of emerges, you know? And what's really interesting is the music, the production. It's not like tonight. You bought a ticket to come in here. You bought a ticket, you'd expect to listen to your music and you'll go home again. This stuff, it doesn't have a start and it doesn't have a stop. It just is. And so what's fascinating is that life, religion, music, those big questions of life, all blur together in one thing. The one thing kind of creeps up. Some people, they sort of disappear off to a car and come back and they have a cigarette, come back and again join in the music. Other people, there's like scaffolders still up doing their work. No one stops what they're doing. It's all expected. It's all part of the thing. The one thing emerges all around you. It's weird, isn't it? rest, you know. If you want to experience sound that moves you, then you need to plug in the headphones or take yourself off to a gig somewhere. And if you want to question your place in life, if you want to deal with larger questions, if you want to respond to the things all around you, then you need to go to a church or a mosque or do some kind of degree in philosophy or go to a concert hall perhaps. But what I'm saying is that we would prefer much more defined categories. We don't like it when the one thing happens all around us. It's difficult to take. It's not very British, is it? When the lines are blurred. Where are you in the middle of all of that? Now, I think it's because of all this that it makes me think about. I think there's like a prevailing image that is around at the moment, you know, the kind of Amy Winehouse is the solitary genius. Do you have like a famous solitary genius that you get on with? If you think musical genius, who do you think of? People like, I don't know, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, Mozart, Bach, I don't know, you've got your own, haven't you? David Bowie, perhaps. All of these people, we think in our head, give enough time or enough heroin to a genius, and they'll come up with era-defining music. It sort of bubbles up somewhere from within. Is that what you think? I think that kind of image is around. Dig down, unlock your own vault, and pull out this kind of music. But what if the image actually should be turned on its head? What if when we make music, we're not making it from some place within? What if we make it to fit, like the birds, to fit our ever-changing context? What if truly memorable work is when the right thing is in the right place? That's when we're really moved, I think. That's why with me, or at least remind you that not so long ago, music was only a piece of sheet music until it was raised and brought to life. Want to have a go at it?
Or play on?
Yep. It's not like we've rehearsed.
No. This one?
Why not?
If you said another one, I'd be in trouble, wouldn't I? This is called Please Leave a Light On When You Go. How fast can a heart shatter before you're walking on splinters? Your head aches just to feel what it knows. Please leave a light on when you go. How can you fix something that you can't touch without hurting? The lesson you've learned is leaving
So good, so good. Beck didn't want to make music for you. He wanted you to take it off him and see how far you could get with it. That's what he wanted. It all harks back to a time when people were part of a kind of a collective experience, and in some way you would sort of sacrifice yourself to be part of the musical thing that was happening all around you. Have you heard of a guy called Christopher Small? He was a musician and a lecturer, and what he believed was that music shouldn't be a noun, it should be a verb, because it's not the name of something, it's the process of doing something. In fact, he wanted the term musicking to be actually added into the dictionary. Yeah, because he believed that music wasn't the organising of sounds. He believed that it was the relationships that form around those sounds that made music what it is. So wherever you hear music, whether it's at church or in the bandstand, at the jazz bar, wherever it is, a set of relationships were formed between audience and performers and bar staff and techies and roadies and whoever else was there. That everybody was actually part of the performance being played, and that if you weren't there, then you couldn't have been a part of it. You know, have you ever said that you have felt part of something when you go and see a gig? You know? That's because Christopher Small believed you actually were part of something.
So let's become part of something. We're going to sing a song. Are you up for singing a song? Yeah. It's a sad song. Don't get too smiley. Don't get too smiley. It's about a bird. I'll just sing it to you. It goes like this. Ah, poor bird, take thy flight far above the sorrows of this sad night. Some of you know it. I can see you singing along. Do you think you can sing with me? Have a go. Ready and off we go. Ah, poor bird, take thy flight far above the sorrows of this sad night. Well, you know better than me. That's amazing. Right, so obviously this song, the best thing about this song is that we can sing it in lots of parts. It's around. So let's say like all the people over here are going to sing with Sam. All the people over here are going to sing with Rich. And then all the people that are left in the middle, you get me. So we're going to do this side, and then this side, and then this side. Is that right? Okay. So, ready to go. Ah, poor bird, take thy flight far above the sorrows of this sad life. Ah, poor bird, take thy flight far above the sorrows of this sad life. Ah, poor bird, take thy flight far above the sorrows of this sad life. Ah, poor bird, take thy flight far above the sorrows of this sad life.
Is that a round of applause? Yes, we're not listening, we're doing. Christopher Small went even further than that. He wasn't a religious guy, but what he wanted to say was that this kind of musicking, not that kind that we've just done, but music in general, the forming of relationships around sound, is what had a prophetic role to play in society. He actually called it prophetic. And what he meant was when people gather around music and form relationships in this kind of way, it was the metaphors for our ideal kinds of relationships that could be explored in this context for music. Relationships between person and person, between persons and an idea, between humanity and the earth, and humanity and the supernatural. He believed that much about music, that it had the ability to change society. He said it was a process of socialisation that was designed to affirm, celebrate, and explore all the relationships possibly could be in a way that friendships and literature could never do. It's interesting, isn't it? Think about that the next time you slap on the Spice Girls. Now, never underestimate the effect that technology has had on music. Around 1923, the record player came in, I think, And this guy called Orlo Williams had a lot to say about it. And he wrote this weird thing. He said, if you were to go into a room, someone was listening alone, and you'd find them there listening alone, you would blush like you found your friend sniffing cocaine or emptying a bottle of whiskey or plaiting straws in his hair. I don't know what plaiting straws in your hair is. But the point is, it's psychologically dangerous. And it was described as self-stimulation. Listening alone was crazy. It was unheard of. You just didn't listen to music by yourselves, you dirty people. Okay? And what do I have to say about that? What technology did was it unlinked music from the bandstand, the jazz bar, the cafe, wherever it was played. And as it went from record to tape to CD to MP3, now that we've got thousands upon thousands of songs in our back pocket every single day, music has become for us what it never, ever, 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 ever could have been in 1923. That is the soundtrack to our everyday lives. I was on train a little while back listening to a band called the Velvet Revolver, and it seemed to me that I was in two worlds at the same time. In the first, I was on a very boring train journey and the conductor was walking towards me. In the other, I was smashing the life out of a song with Scott Weiland and the band. And now I reached this moment where I pulled out the train ticket to give to the conductor just as Slash was reaching the high note on his solo. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I must have triggered some kind of apocalypse somewhere, in the world. But perhaps the illustration should be toned down a little bit. There's like a bridge just behind our house, and I walk there with my boys often. And what we do is we walk over the bridge, and it's over a really busy road, and I just stop and I get the boys out of the buggy and we just look at the cars for a little bit. We do it, when we need to go somewhere or go to the park or whatever. And this one time I had one headphone in and I was listening to this song, which is Ocean by the John Butler Trio. And you've probably experienced this too if you use headphones, but it was like the moment was like a little bit better. Like the cars were like a little bit slower, or there was more colours around, or the love that I felt for my boys at the time was just heightened somehow. And I went home that evening and I thought, what I've just done there is I've slapped some kind of spiritual, musical Instagram filter on that moment. I just, in some very small, very insignificant, no one pays attention to it kind of way, I had augmented the reality that I had just walked through. I've made it better for my own end. Amazing, isn't it, what music can do? Incredible. And is it supposed to do that? Are we supposed to do that with music? Are we supposed to consume it like that? There's no rules, are there? There's no rules. Now, if you pay attention to it, music doesn't just take you sonically elsewhere, it takes you socially elsewhere as well. I have a friend of mine is now a photographer in London, and this guy is he's a brilliant, brilliant guy, and a brilliant photographer actually. He's a young guy, a few years younger than me. Or his judgment is lethargic. Am I awake? I don't think so. Who can tell me who I am? Now that's the question, I think. That's the question that wakes us up in the morning and it sends us to work. It's the question that catches up with us when we're in the bath or when we've got nothing better to do. We wonder to ourselves and we wonder to each other, who were we? Who are we? Who are you? Who are you? One of the difficulties, I think, of living this life is that we watch the news, for instance, I think, for clues about what is happening out there in the world, but really we're watching them in part, I think, to find out bits about ourselves. Who am I in response to this situation? We wake up in the morning, we shower in all this information, and then we go to bed at night with the same madness as the king. Who is it who can tell me who I am? So we pick up a novel, or we go to the opera, we turn to the arts, because they give us some kind of glimpse but it's sideways, it's peripheral. We want it to do something, and it tries to, it nearly gets there, but it doesn't quite make it. One of the very best characteristics, I think, of music is that it is elusive. That it's sort of invitational, it's subjective, it's like always drawing you out of yourself. If you are going through a grief, if you have lost your job and things are difficult and you're trying to work things out, if you have a friendship or a relationship that is tricky, if you're wondering about the kind of person you are, then there is almost no better feeling than someone walking through the door and sitting down next to you and saying, "Me too. Me too. I've been through this. I've been where you are. I understand who you are. Me too." Music does that. Music walks through the door and it's like Janis Joplin's cracked voice begins "Summertime," or Blur starts strumming up those like first 5 chords of song 2, or whatever it is that kind of resonates with you guys, whether it's hopelessness or, I don't know, being lost, being driven, being excited about something. Music is able to say to thousands of people all at the same time, "Me too." That is what is incredible about music. Your friend can't do that. Your therapist can't do that. Not even your wife or your husband can do that for you. But music can do it for thousands and thousands of people all at the same time. Isn't that what Love Manchester is all about? But music, for all it's good, doesn't bring us home. It doesn't bring us home. It doesn't answer the question of the King. It doesn't tell us who we are. Illusion, I think, by the way, is sometimes why Christians like me can be so bad at art. It's because we want you to know something. We're so concerned with tying down a message. We want to tell you something and for you to go away having understood and received it. Sometimes we're just not up for a message being misinterpreted or reinterpreted in different ways. It's too difficult for us. But what really helps, I think, is words. Words are a different kind of revelation. They're much more specific. Even in like the Coldplay song that Tom was playing earlier on, once the words come in, you know roughly where you are, don't you? The words help you. They help kind of guide you. I love words in stuff. I love reading. I love listening, and I love words in songs and music and poetry. The last book of the Bible is like this cathedral that is being built out of words. It's like this massive, great big construction. And it's like everybody is invited in. The whole world is invited in. And there, in amongst it all, is all the sound that we've talked about. All the sound of the earth, the bird song, the sound of the city, New York cityscape, the noise of relationships and conversation and business decisions and the things that happen here. There is this sort of a set of visions that will happen that are almost mythical and massive in scale, just ginormous things that will happen. But as the book is progressing, you realise that something else is happening at the same time. It's like this tremor that's happening underneath the surface. And God himself is on his way. And he's music. He's like this ocean of music that is coming at the turning of the tide. And the people who are listening to the sound that is coming know that once the tide has come and left again, there will be nothing. There will be nothing as it was. It will all be it will all be remade. It will be terrifying and liberating. There are these kind of animals and there's these trumpets and millions of people are sat before this throne and they're singing salvation belongs to our God. Singing this song, and the heavenly scene is umbilically related to this muck and this grime and these questions that we have and the things that we turn to when we're listening to music. And so I wanted to say to you really that what this evening is all about for me, the reason that we put it on, the reason that we wanted it to happen was because where there is the absence of music, so too, I reckon, there is also the absence of God. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Let's give John a round of applause again, shall we? And before I forget, let me thank the other people. So we've got Dan doing sound and doing bass and trombone. We've got Richard doing all these things. Don't have time to say how many things he's doing. And particularly want to say thanks to Karen for doing the bar tonight. And yeah, I want to say thanks to you for coming. Can you turn that down now? Look at the music, gosh. So yeah, we want to say thank you to you. And as I said at the beginning, this is a bit of an experiment. This is an idea, crazy thing that John came up with, reading a book. Shouldn't let him read books, basically. And but if you've enjoyed this evening, if something like this, it doesn't have to be exactly this because you couldn't really repeat this in exactly the same way, but something like this that brings the kind of a bit of a different spin on the kind of relationship between music and spirituality and emotions, and yeah, we could use different forms of music, we could have different types of talks, or we don't really have all the answers, but if you are interested in that, there is a sheet at the back, thanks Rachel, which I think we're going to pass around now. And if you would like to sign up your name and your email address, if we get enough people sign up and say, yeah, I'm vaguely interested in this, then we'll know that maybe this is something we could put on more regularly, maybe once a term or something like that. If you guys are interested and you would like to, and also not only that, but we're not just going to kind of get a load of names and then just spam you. We're actually going to, if you put your email address in there, we will ask you what sort of thing would you like. Have you got ideas? Have you got something that you could contribute? So this is not just about kind of just getting a mailing list. This is about getting a bunch of people who are kind of bought in and say, yes, we want to feedback what we thought of this evening and also feed into ideas for future evenings. Yeah. Cool, so that's going around now. The sort of formal part of the evening is over, but the bar is still open. And what I would just challenge you to do, one thing around your tables or the people you've come with or people you want to chat with after I stop yakking is just what was one thing that struck you from the talk tonight? One thing you hadn't heard before, one thing that made you, challenged or you didn't agree with or whatever it was. Just have a chat about one thing that struck you. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. Thanks to everyone who's been part of it, and yeah, good night.